everybody, welcome to Art Club. This is the first ever one, which is incredibly exciting. For those of you who haven't met me in real life, my name is Ema and I love to create and make things, mainly pictures and artwork, but I love using all sorts of different things like watercolours and acrylic paints and chalk, pastels, pencils, pens, anything. I think it should be fun, and switching what materials I'm using, make sure it stays that way. So today we're going to be using watercolour paints, which is one of my favourite things to use. I started using these, I suppose, when I was very young. And I've got my set of watercolours here, which are very old and well loved, as you can see. You can see some of the colours have run out completely, and some of them I've just recently replaced. But this is very special to me. I've had it a really long time, and this is what we're going to be using today to create our sunset pictures. So hopefully your adults have shown you the sunset picture we're going to be doing today. So you're going to need to have that to hand. Perhaps you've got your own picture that you'd like to do, which is fantastic. It's really important that you do this exactly the way you want to do it. It's supposed to be fun. That is the most important thing of all. And also, I want you to focus on enjoying the doing part of actually getting on with this and making something. It doesn't necessarily matter what the thing at the end looks like. Sometimes you might absolutely love it and sometimes you might not, but that's totally fine because you can do as many as you like, and it's really important to not give up with it because you will only get better and better and better. And that's what I've been doing. I try and create something almost every day. Sometimes those things are fantastic and I love them, sometimes they're not, but it's the process of just enjoying getting on and making something. So I want to tell you what you're going to need today. So as I showed you earlier, some watercolour paints. If you don't have any watercolour paints, that's fine, just use normal poster paints, but you can water them down a bit so that we can work with them a bit easier. We're going to need some water. Got a jar of water here, and a paintbrush, quite a chunky one if you have one, but if you don't have one, that's fine, just any paintbrush. I'm going to be using charcoal. But if you don't have charcoal, that doesn't matter either. You can use a black pencil or a black pen, and you're going to need some paper, obviously, and you're also going to need a cloth for cleaning your brush. I just use an old tea towel cloth. You can throw it in the wash, but it's a bit better for the environment. But if you want to use a kitchen roll or whatever like that, that's fine. And some tissue. So that's what you're going to need. And I just want to show you as well. This is the picture we're going to be using today. So it's a sunset picture. Lots of very vivid colours in there. And that's going to be really important for what we're doing today. One thing I wanted to talk to you about before we begin is the watercolour paints themselves. So with watercolours, some people end up with really, really weak colours, very faint colours, and that can be really nice sometimes. But for what we're going to do today, you need quite vibrant colours. So the way you make them vibrant is by only mixing a really small amount of water with them. So as we go, I'll show you all about that, how we can do that. Okay. Right. Oh, sorry about that horrible noise. That was my chair. So here we have a lovely big piece of paper, as you can see. Now I'm going to be mixing. I'm going to be mixing this water with my paints, And to start with, I just want to show you what it's like to compare the very pale colours and the very strong colours. So first of all, I'm going to be using quite a lot of water, dipping my brush in the water, getting quite a lot of water on it. And I'm going to be using a purple colour. If you don't have purple, you can mix red and blue to make purple. There's a little hack for you. So I'm using quite a lot of water here, getting really wet brush, and now I'm going to put it on my paper, and you'll see that the colour isn't a really nice colour, but it's very pale. Now, by comparison, if we clean our brush, dry it off, and now I'm just going to get a really small bit of water. I'm just dipping the end of the brush in the water very gently, and I'm going to use lots of paint. So I'm only using the tiniest bit of water and lots of paint. And now, okay, so it doesn't show up very well, but you can see we end up with a much richer colour. Now, watercolours are very subtle compared to poster paints. Poster paints create really big blocky colours, but we need the watercolour paints today because we're going to be blending lots of colours together to create that beautiful sunset. So, without further ado, we're going to get our page. Right. So, here we go. Alright. Now, first thing is we need a clean brush. So, here's where you can start copying me. So, cleaning my brush off in the water, drying it off. The first thing I'm going to do is make the page wet. So I'm going to just be using water, no colour, and I want my page to be damp because that is going to enable us to mix the colours together nicely so that there's no big lines between the colours. We want it just to fade into each other. Okay. So. Okay, so try it and spread that water all over the page. Don't want it soaking wet, but you do want it damp. Luckily today's a cold day, so we don't have to fight against the time, because when you're doing watercolours on a hot day, as you can imagine, the paint dries really quickly, and so it's hard to blend the colours. But today it is not hot. So, right, okay, my page is wet. So, next up, sorry about this camera work. Okay, so now we need to look at our picture. And one of the things that's really important when we're doing art is to look really carefully at the shapes and the colours. So, we're going to look really carefully at the colours at the top. Now, hopefully you've got your own copy of this in front of you, or you've got your different picture to look at. We're going to start from the top of the picture, so really look closely at what colours you can see up there, because that's the first thing we're going to be doing. We're going to be making those colours and putting those on the top of the paper. So in this picture I see a very deep dark blue. Now, one thing that is important to remember with art is that your picture doesn't have to look like the photo. Photos are photos, pictures are pictures. And so you're not trying necessarily to get it exactly like the photo. Art is about taking your spin on it. So if your colours are slightly different, or you want to do something, you know, maybe your colours do come out really pale, that can look really beautiful too. So don't panic, just enjoy the process of making the picture. So to create this colour for the top, I'm taking my really dark blue here. I love blue, so it's very worn out. And I'm only using a small bit of water because if you remember from before, not too much water for when we're making vibrant, strong colours. Okay, so I've got my blue. Now, some of you who are a little bit older and might like a bit more of a challenge, there's a tiny bit of purple in that colour as well, I would say. So you could add in a really strong purple in. You can mix those two together. If you have a plate or, I don't know, a little egg cup or something, you can mix those colours together, make them really nice and strong. So again, really nice strong colour. Now we need to do this quick before the paper dries. Okay, so we're getting in at the top. Now, you can see from what I'm doing that my paper is starting to dry really quickly. I need to stop talking so much. So I'm adding in more water from my water pot just to make sure that my colours are wet. So here we go, we're getting a bit of a blue up at the top there. Now I want that to be stronger. So I'm dipping my paintbrush back into my paint. Not much water at all on here. Mixing it in. Okay, and going back onto my paper. Right, now you can see we're starting to get some deep colours in there at the top. Nice, okay. Add in a bit more water in here. Now this line here, right here, I want to be nice and wet because that's where I'm going to be adding in my next colour. So, if I go back to my picture, my next colour is quite a pinky colour. So I need a strong purpley pink. So, with watercolours, sometimes you don't have a pink because a very pale red is basically pink. So I'm going to go for my red, but remember to make the colour pale I have to use lots of water. So I'm dipping my paintbrush, lots and lots of water. Ooh. Okay. And as I add this red into the top of my blue, it's going to start to make purple. I would have asked you that if we were together in real life, sadly we're not, so I'll have to answer my own questions. Okay, so here we go. Right, adding this in. Okay, now you can see the way I'm running my paintbrush along the edge of the blue. And what that does is enables the colours to mix together. Okay, now that's very pale, so I'm coming back into my red down here, and I'm going to be adding a little bit of purple into my red. So I'm going to come over here. I just want it to be slightly brighter. Okay, here we go. So now we're getting some stronger colours in here. Now, where I want to merge the colours, I'm adding water. I'm not adding more paint because we don't want to end up with stripes. We want the colours to blend together. We don't want it to be stripy. Okay, right. So here we go. Starting to get to there now. Okay, looking back at my picture. The pink, as you can see in the photo, starts to run quite low down. So we need to look back at our page and see. So our skyline down here is going to come up to about here on our page. So we need the colours to go all the way down, then we're going to let the paint dry, and then we're going to be adding the skyline over the top. So we want this beautiful sky to run the whole way down. Okay, so I'm adding more colours into this now. I've got a little bit of purple in there. Oops, okay. So I'm just using the water to pull the colours down. Now remember, if you want to make your colours really, really strong, we use hardly any water, okay? Because in a sunset, sometimes the colours are so beautiful and strong. And I think one of the amazing things about nature is sometimes you look at the sky and you think, wow, that is so beautiful, I want to take a picture of that. And almost always when you take the picture you think, it doesn't look as good as the real thing. And that is the amazing thing about nature, because us humans, we can't quite capture it. We can try. So, okay, so that's looking quite nice now. So we've got our dark blues fading into more pinkies and a little bit purpley down here. I'd like my purple a little bit stronger. So remember, I'm not using too much water when I want to make it strong. And if your palette starts to get quite wet, which they do, you can see here my purple is looking quite soggy, get a corner of a cloth that isn't special. Don't get your school uniform, for example, and you can just dab it dry so that we can use it as a stronger colour. Sorry about that. Hope that was a fun little seasick moment for you. So, bring my colour all the way down, and right at the end here there's a beautiful orange, a strong, vibrant orange. So, going back to my palette, get my orange colour, and we want this colour to be strong, so not too much water in there. If your page is starting to dry, just put a little bit more water on your page. Clean your brush and put a little bit more water on. Okay, here comes our orange. I'm mixing it in. Now, we've got a bit of a stripe here, which we don't want. So, hopefully you know by now, but what we're going to do is dip our brush in the water. We just want water at this point, we don't want colour, and we're just going to run a bit of water along that line. Can you see what that's doing? It's making the colours just mix together so that they're more of a gradual fade. I'm going to get a bit more orange, I want that to be stronger, because usually exactly where the sun has gone down, in that exact spot, usually looks really, really almost luminous in colour. So, add that in, like so. Okay, so, so now we need our page to dry. Okay, so we've got our beautiful colours running all the way down our page. I'm going to use a hairdryer because when I'm really excited, I'm very impatient. But if you are feeling patient, or you've got something else you need to do, maybe you need to go to the loo, maybe you need to get something to eat, just let it dry naturally. And we are then going to do our silhouettes. Very exciting. Very, very exciting. Okay. Just finished doing my hair. Just finished drying my picture. And I'm happy that it's dry. I've used my hands. Make sure your hands are clean when you do this. But just use my hands to feel the paper and check if it's dry. So I'm happy with that. It's really important it's dry, because the next thing we're going to be doing is drawing over the top of our beautiful colours. And if your paper is damp, your paper might start to rip, which is a shame. So we want to try and avoid that if possible. At this point, if you've used sort of just regular paper, you'll notice your paper might be a bit crinkled. Don't worry about that too much. That doesn't really matter. That's only because it's been wet, obviously, through the colours, and now it's dried again, so it might dry a bit crinkled. If you really love art, or this is something that you would like to spend a lot more time doing, it might be worth buying a sketchbook, asking your Adults, if they wouldn't mind doing that, or you save up your pocket money, or maybe if you have a birthday or something, you could ask for some art supplies. That's what I do. I'm a very easy person to buy for, because then you will have the special paper that doesn't crinkle up. But if it's crinkled, it kind of adds a bit of texture, maybe makes it even better. So hopefully I'm not going to knock you guys over, and I'm going to turn you around so that we can do the next step of the picture. Okay, so just going to get our silhouette back up. Right, so you can see down here at the bottom, even though when it's daylight and you look outside at trees and houses and things, you can see that there's loads of colours that are in them. However, in this picture, because the sun is going, and obviously the sun gives us light, the outlines of the trees and the houses and the roofs are black. And that's why for this next part we only need something that is black. It needs to be something that can create quite fine lines, so very thin lines, and that's because if you really look, I'm going to zoom in on this tree for example, you can see that all of the branches are just tiny fine lines. There's absolutely no leaves on that tree, and that's because we're doing a winter sunset, so all of the leaves have obviously fallen off this tree. So we're going to be really thinking about what trees actually look like, and that's something we're going to do another day, because I think a lot of people imagine in their head what a tree looks like and they do it like a lollipop, but I've never seen a lollipop tree in real life. So we're going to be using something that's black and can create fine lines here. Okay, so for me today I'm going to be using charcoal. It's a really fun thing to use. It's very, very fragile. It looks like there's a stick, and charcoal comes in all different types. This one is very, very soft. You can see there, it's on my fingers already. I love the fact that it's soft, but whatever you've got, just go for it. So I'm going to be looking at my picture and looking at the shapes. So I can see a mixture of shapes. I can see some roof shapes, and I can see trees. So I'm going to look carefully at my picture and the shapes of the roofs. And I'm going to be copying them. So I can see roofs, I can see chimneys. It's a really tall chimney. And as I'm drawing these shapes, I'm not using a ruler or anything. I personally don't think that you should use rulers in art, really. And also, I can't even draw a ruler with a straight line. A straight line with the ruler. Good. So there would be no point anyway. So I'm colouring in these shapes now, because if you look at my picture, it's black all the way down to the end of the paper. What's a cool thing about charcoal is you can smudge it with your fingers, so it's not like a colouring pencil or a pen. See the way I can smudge it? See that? And the harder I lean with it, the darker the colours. And as I smudge it, it gets lighter. So we've got some shapes of some roofs now. A chimney pot. And there's a roof over here, which has got a little chimney on it here. Okay. So here we go, making all of this black, using my fingers to smudge it. Now if you have a pen or a pencil, this is obviously going to take you a lot longer, because you've got a fine point to create all of this black. One idea for this, which is a really fun thing to do, maybe you can try this another time, is if you've got black paper, you can cut out this shape of black paper and just glue it over the top. That also works really well. Now I'm going to start looking at the trees. So you can see now my charcoal has come to a fine point here. So I'm going to be using that fine point to create my trees because I need a thin line. So I see some big trees in the middle. So I'm going to start with the trunks, and I'm leaning quite hard with my charcoal because I want these trees to stand out. I'm not going to smudge these trees because I need them to be really clear lines. And I'm using my charcoal and I'm using the point to draw all of these twiggy little fingers off the branches. Now, our tree has loads of little branches. And I can see that even though this tree probably has one trunk down at the end, down on the ground, it's obviously split off into lots of different mini trunks. So I'm trying to really look at the picture and what I can see. I'm not trying to imagine what I can see. I'm not just thinking, oh yeah, I know what a tree looks like. I'm trying really hard to keep looking at the picture. If you have an iPad or a phone, zoom in on it and really look at the tiny branches. This is where if you're doing this with a pencil, that's really good because you can add in really fine little branches. I'm using the very tip of my charcoal and being really light as I get to the end of the branches. I'm not leaning very hard at all. Now there's lots of trees, so I've got more over here. Now at this point, if you've done one tree and you really like it just with the one, that's absolutely fine, leave it that way. This is your picture and it's really important that it looks the way you want it to look. Sometimes when you're making a picture, you'll get to a point where you think, I just love it this way, I don't want to add any more. And sometimes you might not have got to where you thought you would get to when you have that feeling. But art is a lot about your feelings and what you think looks beautiful. So trust that feeling in yourself when you really like it. Now you can see here in the middle one of the downsides of charcoal and the downside of being left-handed is that I've obviously smudged it with my palm there, so I've got a little bit of smudging, but that's okay. I'm going to use my charcoal, I'm going to go back over it, just pick out those lines, make them a bit stronger. I'm not going to go back in with my fingers because I'll just smudge it more, but I don't mind. Okay, so here is my sunset picture. I've got my sunset sky, I've got my buildings, and I've got my trees. Now, I could go over this bit here and make that a bit darker, and I could add in more trees, but right now I think I'm happy with that. So try not to knock you over. So I would love to see what your pictures look like, and I hope that you've really enjoyed doing this little art lesson with me. If your adults are on social media, they can use the hashtag IC, which is Illustrate Create Kids Art Club. So IC Kids Art Club. I would love to see what you've made. This lesson today has been a little bit longer than I thought it would be. They won't always be this long, and I really hope that you've enjoyed it. You might have got loads of other ideas from just doing this one picture of different things that you want to do. Maybe you want to do a sunset made up with different colours. Maybe you want to do try out that thing with the black paper where you cut out the shapes of the trees and the roofs to make the silhouettes. That's a really nice crisp way of doing it. So yeah, I hope it's been fun, and I hope more than anything that you've just enjoyed the process of feeling creative. And I will see you tomorrow.